All right, welcome back. We are on part number 5. This is bag F, which has got some sliders, the skid, some other chassis parts, bumper brackets, bumper mounts, bunch of screws, a 23 tooth servo horn, and a 25 tooth servo horn. I believe that is for depending on which servo you run. I haven't seen many aftermarket servos with 23 tooth gears, so most likely we'll be using the 25. We'll set the 23 aside and we will dig right into this. We've got upper control arm mount dish thingies, maybe 1 and 2 and 3. So yeah, those are for upper control arms. And looks like a number 1. We got 2 number 1s and a number 2. So this is the upper link mount assembly front link, and it is this guy. And number 1 sits like this. We got 1, 2, 3 holes. It looks like we're going into the bottom one. So it's down here. Get it lined up with the hole. And alright, so there's one. I'm gonna set this over here to the left, knowing that that's the front. And then you've got both of the number 2s, and then we've got the rear upper links with the funky 22.5s on them, which are these guys. And it looks like if you've got it sitting this way and this way, they will be angled towards the inside. And your screw is going to be coming from here on the inside part of it. Handle it like this, something else. You get this lined up. You don't have to move your arms. Once you get that screw into a tip, also easier. Open down the drill. And then this guy sits this way. And then we'll face inside. So you get the cover orientation of the links with the values on him. Though you have to just realign everything. Right. So now we're going down the drill. Okay. So those are all the uppers. I'll leave these over here for rear. Then we've got the skid, which you've got 1 here and 2 here. When I say 1 and 2, these are the little nipples that these guys will sit down into. So you pop that one there. Remember, you want them facing inwards. Pop this one there. And this guy here. Alright, okay. So we got 3/8 and 3/10. When I say 8s and 10s, it's millimeter screws. And it looks like the 10 millimeters are the 115s, and they'll go on the innermost screw holes. Messed up. Alright, so let's go ahead and run these guys down. Alright, so we got those guys. And next we need the 18 millimeter screws, which are, well, now that I finally found it, we are going with, it looks to be lower control arms. So you've got the longer ones and the shorter ones. Shorter ones go in the front, longer ones go in the rear. Okay, that's all the control arms onto the skid. This guy. Looks like it, and it'll sit like this. Okay, so we've got this fancy submarine SW2290SG digital Savox. It's a high voltage servox. High voltage servo by Savox. There you go. Say that 5 times fast. And it looks like we got this guy, and it looks like This guy sits on here, this way. All right, 115, that's a 10mm screw. I'm just going to lightly install that so that it still moves around because it shifts this way for different size servos. So now that you've got the screws into the servo, you can make sure that this isn't going to move because it's dead set. And now we'll tighten this last set screw, if you will. And that is this piece assembled. And then it says to add the servo horn, but I'm not going to add the servo horn until I get it on my vehicle and get it powered up and centered. We will set this to the side. Okay, so we've got this front shock tower and this panhard mount and the panhard bar. It looks like this guy sits on here, what, like this? Yes. So that sits in there like that. So you've got this 8mm screw that will hold this panhard mount onto the front shock tower. Go ahead and tighten that down. I can see these being replaced for metal ones in the future. That son of a bitch is sharp from the factory. All right, and then you get the panhard bar, which will mount from the back side here. This one right here. And then it will come through the back, screw into this panhard mount. Once I get it assembled, I'll show you. Okay, so you want this 10mm screw to hold this panhard mount onto the shock tower, and you're going to be looking at it if the car was on its side like this. So you want this nipple piece out, which is where this rod end threads into it. And then if you're looking at it from the front down, this will come up and drop down and come over, and this is what hooks to the axle to pivot like so. And we've got this front bumper bracket with a body mount. It goes like so. And actually need to screw this down all the way so alleviate that gap right there. Okay. Then you can line up this hole with the hole on the chassis rail, and we'll come back with this shock tower that will actually sit over top of this like so. Getting back in the groove of the screws, I guess. It's been a minute. A few weeks. Month maybe. And this guy will screw into the bumper itself. Give me a second. Okay. Sometimes you just gotta press it up against your belly. So this part of the bumper bracket is where this screw goes into. Holds it all nice and stout. And then after that we get the servo mount, which will sit in here like this. And you've got a screw that goes in here and a screw that goes in back here. And then this servo bracket comes in next. I'm just gonna lightly screw that in until I get the other screw set. Okay, coming together now. Next after that is what looks like this guy, the slider. And that's what's gonna sit down into this notch right here. Like so, boom, boom. Got that guy on there. And then it wants us to get a rear shock tower, and this dude, which will actually sit this way. Get some of these screws out of here. And the additional shock tower brace slash body mount slash, yep. And then we'll get this other chassis rail that's got all these screws in it and start screwing things into this. This guy will sit between this screw and this back one here, 1, 2, and 3. And those side screws are not indicated. Well, yeah, 2 of them are going to be the shock tower, which are a 146, 12mm. Paying that again, 1, 2, this will be 4, 3, and 4. It's going to through shock tower into that chassis brace, which will go like this, and like this, and this is going to come in here. So do this one in. Yep, so right here. Okay, those two, yeah, 2 more. If we go for this shock brace, or I guess the initial chassis brace, you also have other body posts in if you want to go to the bottom, and then the value comes with it. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3 installed on the chassis rail. And the next is going to be bringing these 2 pieces together and getting the rest of these out of the way so that I'm not slinging everything. These 2, and it will slide in there somehow. And then this guy comes back into the picture, which goes in there somehow. All right, I found the screws. It's a pain in my ass, but you know, it's part of it, I reckon. So now you've got 2 holes on the bottom of the slider. Let's see if we can run this screw in here first. Okay. And then we'll set this guy on here. It's all about how you build it yourself to make your life easier, because nothing about this is really that simple. We got the skid, we'll hit that screw. If I can hold it all with one hand. Just like so. Pop it in now, like that. And that is 1/2 of the chassis assembled. All right, so we've got the rear chassis rail, we've got the rear bumper brace. And that will sit like so. Oh, you're just gonna show me the picture but not what screw to put in it yet, huh? Okay. All right, I see you there. So we're gonna bring this guy back in. This 1/2 of the chassis. This is the rear. And it will sit along right here. Let's try something a little different. Let's get the rear mount. And now we will slide this chassis rail in where it's going to sit, and need 2 more of the 12mm screws. So that feels a little bit longer than 12. Nope, that's 12. All right, then okay, so we've got that shock tower chassis rail, and that should sit damn near perfect where it needs to be. Ouch. There and there, straight across. And then we got the other piece with the other piece, other chassis rail with the other slider. That will sit there. And then this guy will come in somewhere around here. Right? Where's that last hole at? There it is. Right there. Pretty sure down into the skid. Alright. That's that. And then actually it looks like we're running a 114, which is an 8mm. This one and this one into the front of these guys, the front of the skid. I don't know if we're putting those in yet or not, but it says to, so I feel like the fenders actually bolt up under here, but I think they come on the top as well. All right, so just like that, you've got the chassis just about assembled. We're gonna keep on trucking, and we've got the other front shock tower, the other front body mount. This is it. This is here, like so, and that gets the 25 10 mils. 10 mils hold this shock tower in place. All right, shock tower is down in place. And then we got, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, those are actually 12 mils, 10 mils for the body mount. Which will sit. One screw in the front upper, the other screw in the back of the front upper. Which one goes in almost down, so getting lined up. So you can actually buy aluminum or brass front bumper bracket mounts and the rears. And you can also get aluminum body mounts because the plastic does tend to twist a little bit. Haven't had any problems with it ever. But I did put brass bumper mounts on the base camp that I've got. But that was just temporary. We're gonna go with these two little stubby guys, and if it doesn't work, then we'll come back and move them around. So we'll slide those in there and run these guys into this bumper bracket. All right, bumper bracket on the rear is installed. Now it's telling me to bring in the transmission, and we will bring this guy on over. And it's going to slide down into the holes. Push these motor mounts down to where they will seat. If I can get my big old head in there. Oh, too far. Boom and boom. These motor mount spots. We're just gonna start them. Make sure the back of the transmission is held down. Get the spots on the skin. These guys on this way. And that sits in there nicely. And it doesn't tell you jack shit about these two screws here. You gotta get that thing lined up in there anyways, in the first place. I think we'll just stick to the Vanquish, what'd you call it? Vanquish kits, because this one's kind of ass. Doesn't look like I've got all the right screws. Alright, I am back. Had me a nice little temper tantrum. Fucking yelling at this thing, it made me angry. And while I was doing so, I went ahead and put in the NSDRC RS100s for the shift and the dig. This one's green's Tommy's favorite color. I think he'll love the hell out of that. So it was a little bit of calming down to do while I was doing all that. So that was that. Now we are going to get into installing the axles. It just keeps going and going and going. And now it is telling us on F8 we are going to start installing the links on the front axle. So we got the tie rod and the drag link, and we need a 120 and a 110. So your drag link is going to come in this way with the curve going back towards the rear of the vehicle. We'll slide this guy in here, give it just a couple threads, and then come over here with the other tie rod, hook it up, and we are going with, what's the 110? It's a 16 millimeter, it's a bigger one. Hand tighten that. We're going to do these by hand instead of the drill. It's not plastic, it's fairly easy. Tighten down, tighten this one down. Alright, just like that, you've got the drag link and the tie rod onto the front axle. Now it's telling us to put it onto the chassis. So I'm gonna do it upside down. You just gotta remember to flip the axle upside down. And we are going to spin her this way. This is how I tend to, come on, get out of here, boy. This is how I tend to work on front ends. It's just a little bit easier for me in this aspect. So going in first is a 109, which is a 14mm screw, and that is for the pan hard. And the pan hard is going to hook to, let's see, what is it? The back side of the axle. So I'm gonna kind of finagle this to be able to do it a little bit easier. Hopefully you can still see everything. Let's see if we can get her started in this weird position or not. All right, and then we will flip the lower control arms up and get this upper, set her in right there, close to it. And that one is the 109, which is the 14mm screw, which we're gonna get it started again because it's plastic. No threads ever cut. Send it home, but not too hard. And then it looks like we are going to begin in this front axle. I'm just gonna lay that right there so it don't fall out. Now, if I can, let's put it in. Get this spun and over. Set this guy in. There we go. Run her down. Okay. Nice and tight. Then we got the lower. We're going with red for the front, being hopefully softer. We'll set this here. Let's see, is this, oh, they over drilled that perfectly. Probably done on purpose. But we're going to send that through the shock. I know the axle fell out, I'll fix it. Or the drive shaft, I mean. We'll push that in. And then we will reset the drive shaft splines back in their hole. Tighten this upper down. Okay, another 25 and another red springed shock, which is this boy. Here's the wheel. Slide the shock into the shock nut. On the screw. Just nut in. Slow control in here now. Okay, turn it down. Okay. And now we have the upper and lower control arms in. I'm not doing the step of adding the drag link to the servo solely because I don't have the servo centered, and I'm not going to be screwing it into something that's not centered. Don't want to overextend or bind something, tear it up. So now we are going to do the upper shocks. All right, two of those. We will roll these into the upper farthest back hole per the instructions. Spin it around. Forward second. And remember, this little standoff is going to be facing the chassis. That gives you cover along the shop. So that it doesn't bind up. Nice fluid movement out of the front. No dangly wangly. Spin this guy around. Flip the uppers up. Grab the rear axle. Put it down here upside down. The upper control arm bolt, I should say. Can you see it? Yeah. Get my big old fat fingers out of the way. All right, there's one. And two if it wants to cooperate. Okay. Run her down. Again, doesn't have to be ungodly tight, it's plastic. You don't want to strip it. And then we will get, where'd it go? There it is. The rear drive shaft, we're gonna go ahead and just screw into this so I don't forget about it, because I will. It's just part of it. I get excited, I want it done now, and I'll forget about it. So let's see if we can slide that in and roll this forwards. Keep that from popping out maybe, doubt it. Then we've got the shocks again with the longer screws. I don't remember the size. I'm not going to look at the size because it's the only 2 screws that I have left. Well, not the only 2. The only 2 long ones I have left. And we will do the same on the opposite side. Okay, now let's tighten them down. Okay. Axle is in alignment from my angle. Can you see it? Does it look okay? Looks fine. Drive shaft is in, control arms are in. Flip it back over. All right. Fully functional suspension. Gotta love it. All right, that is all that she wrote for the chassis assembly, transmission install, shock install, drive shaft install, link install, whole shebang. This is what you will be left with. Bunch of dangly wires that get in the way, and completely almost drivable. So thanks for sticking around for this part. I don't remember what part this is. I'm probably 2 hours into this and it's been longer than it should have been, but I told you at the beginning of the video what part this was, so thanks for joining in. We got the servos in, all 3 servos, both shifts, steering, transmission, links, drive shafts, chassis assembled, shocks installed, axles installed. Stick around for the next part, which will be, I believe, the battery trays, and a few other mindless things that will help you get back out on the trail. So thanks for sticking around. I appreciate y'all, and we'll see you here shortly.